Welcome back to another edition of the Sal Greco Show, and I'm your host, Sal Greco. If you're watching us on Rumble, please hit the Rumble button, hit the like button. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, hit the notification button. If you're listening on any major podcast streaming platforms, like, share, and subscribe. Today will be a news blitz. There's a lot going on. I'm going to try to break it down. We have the Tariq Shepard incident where there's an officer underneath him in the NYPD that went and left someone a paraplegic, and it's a complete failure by the job, the NYPD. We're going to get into that. Sheriff Anthony Miranda, the New York City sheriff, there's a court decision levied on him and the New York City Police Department and New York City in general. We'll get into that. Also want to discuss something about the disciplinary system in the New York City Police Department. All of that and more coming right up on the Sal Greco Show. So here's what we're going to start off with. Here's a post by myself on X. And it reads, NYPD Assistant Chief and former Deputy Commissioner of Public Information Tariq Shepard is about to cost New York City taxpayers millions of dollars, another gift bestowed upon New York City by the wonderful decision-making of Eric Adams. So, let's read this article together. NYPD commanders knew cop busted in random New Jersey shooting was on a downward spiral. Here's a picture of the victim. It's horrible to even, see this. By Graham Raymond of the New York Daily News. NYPD officer Howie Tron's downward spiral into depression and heavy drinking began long before he inexplicably shot and paralyzed a young businessman last May during a random traffic encounter on a road in South Jersey, according to sources and court records reviewed by the news. Tran, 27, now sits accused in a cell in the Camden County, New Jersey jail, while the victim of the shooting, Kishan Patel, 31, undergoes day after day of grueling rehab at a special hospital 1,500 miles away in Houston in an effort to restore basic functions. On June 17th, Tran gave a 6-hour interview to New Jersey psychiatrist Michael Wiltse, in which he disclosed NYPD superiors were aware of his problems both at the 2A precinct in Harlem and after he was transferred into a pressure-packed role managing social media for the department's press office, according to a court transcript and sources. But they did not take his firearms or sideline him to get treatment. At the height of the student protest over the war in Gaza last April, Tran was part of the NYPD social media team and often working double and triple tours, including a 31-hour stretch without a day off and medicating with alcohol, sources familiar with the report said. My boss needs me. He picked me out. I don't want to let him down, Tran told relatives, according to the sources. He described his role to Wiltse as social media assistant to the press office's deputy commissioner, who at the time was Tariq Shepard, also his former commander at the 2A precinct. At the time, Shepard and other police brass were using social media to aggressively defend the NYPD's tactics at those protests, including posting controversial hype videos of operations at Columbia University and City College. But Tran's drinking had become problematic even before he became a cop in 2021, as his mother died of cancer. Sources familiar with Tran's conversation with Wiltse said. It got worse as he worked at the Harlem precinct under Shepard, and worse still after he was transferred to the press office in September 2023. At several points, according to the sources, Tran turned to an unidentified captain who merely offered kindly advice. Don't cope with booze or drugs, the captain told Tran. Promise me you will lay off the booze. His commanding officer, New York PD, recognized he had an alcoholic abuse problem, told him to get treatment for it, hasn't done it, said New Jersey Judge Michael Taylor, citing Wiltse's report at his June 25 detention hearing. The disclosures raise questions over whether it was enough to merely counsel Tran. NYPD commanders have the power in such instances to remove an officer's firearms and direct them to be assessed for possible inpatient treatment, said 3 current and former chiefs consulted by the news. They know about his problems, and he's not suspended or required to surrender his firearms, said Joseph Marone, the Patel's lawyer, in a negligence lawsuit against the city. But it's not about this officer. This is an extension of a toxic culture in the Department of Cops who aren't properly trained and aren't properly reprimanded. A grueling visual. Meanwhile, Kishan Patel's parents hold a vigil for their son at Tur Memorial Hospital in Houston. Manjina and Hamanshu Patel walk each morning from their rented room to his bedside and stay with him through 12-hour days. It is so mentally tiring. Every day we are working through this with him, Manjina, 67, said. It's heartbreaking. We wash his face, we make sure he doesn't vomit, and every day we ask ourselves, why did this happen? Kishan was engaged in minutes from May 17 in South Jersey's Voorhees Township when Tran, who was off duty, pulled up alongside his pickup truck and opened fire with his service weapon. A 9mm bullet entered behind Kishan's right ear at the junction of his brain and spine and rendered him a quadriplegic. Tran then ran a red light and fled home to Yonkers. 8 months later, Kishan can't yet speak or feed himself, his family says. He will require skilled nursing care for the rest of his life. In just 8 months, his medical bills have already topped $1 million. A good day is measured in tiny moments, his mom said, and just as often, there are setbacks. He has minimal non-verbal communication, said brother-in-law Daniel Gaugen, 34. It's just day-to-day. It's going to be a long haul. At the time he was shot, Kishan was running the 2 liquor stores his parents owned in Camden and Williamston, New Jersey. But where his business talent really shined was what he did with their third business, a pool supply company he had taken online and where he had rapidly increased sales. Bob Almond, 68, a successful entrepreneur and family friend, said he helped mentor Kishan. I saw potential in this young man. He was like a sponge. Almond, retired and living in Florida, told the news. He would have multiplied his parents' success by tenfold at minimum. That responsibility has now fallen on Kishan's sister, Krishna, 30. Our mom and dad were getting ready to retire, and Kishan was handling the businesses, Krishna said. This man should never have had a gun in the first place. Despair declined. Tran became a cop in February 2021. Inspired, he said, by watching police officers tend to his mother when she was robbed, the source said. When his mom's cancer diagnosis grew dire, Tran managed the sadness with alcohol, the sources said. She died in 2020. At the Harlem precinct, he drank heavily after work to ease the stress from the deaths, assaults, and blood he witnessed on the job, the sources said. I should have sought therapy. The load was too much to bear, Tran told Wiltsey, the sources said. I was crying, breaking down at work. Tran's problems followed him when he was transferred to DCPI, and the stress accelerated in his social media role. A long day often ended at a bar in Times Square. The next thing I know, I'm at the bar drinking, but also managing my boss's schedule and his social media, he told Wiltsey, the sources said. 2 retired cops formerly assigned to DCPI told the news it was unusual for an officer with less than 3 years on the job to make it to that high-profile unit, much less be given a pressure-packed role. In April, as the protests dominated national news, Tran had another setback. He and his partner broke up. He was devastated, the sources said. Tran took some time off but kept drinking after he returned. One drink became I would wake up the next day and didn't know how I got home, he told Wiltsey, the sources said. Sometimes after such a bender, he would obsessively check his car and search the internet for car crashes, the sources said. Tran's relatives noticed his downward spiral, the sources said. At one point, he posted of his feet on a ledge near the ocean. On the day of the shooting, Tran went to a wedding in Sicklerville, New Jersey, 100 miles from the city, and drank heavily, he told Wiltse, according to the sources. He claimed he later woke up in bed with no memory of the shooting. Prosecutors said Tran went to work as if nothing happened and made sure to refill the magazine of his pistol to replace the bullets he had fired. He also followed news reports of the incident, the sources said. Over the next 3 weeks, detectives in Jersey examined surveillance video and cell data to trace Tran's white Lexus to a gas station where he used his credit card to buy gas. He was arrested June 6th, records show. An NYPD spokesman did not reply to emails from the news. Shepard, who was replaced as spokesman in November by new Commissioner Jessica Tisch, also did not reply to requests for comment. Nicholas Paolucci, a law department spokesman, declined comment on the pending case. Tran remains on suspension from the NYPD while his case is pending. He is now represented by prominent New Jersey lawyer Robin Lord, who touts on her website that a prosecutor once told her to go F her yourself. Mr. Tran's defense will be well known in due time. The case is not what it seems, Lord told the News Saturday, declining further comment. Wiltse concluded Tran was suffering from acute depression, a serious drinking problem, and post-traumatic stress, according to statements in the detention hearing. It seems that he was a powder keg or a time bomb waiting to go off, said prosecutor Peter Gallagher at the detention hearing, a transcript shows. As the criminal case proceeds in Camden County, the Patels have a hearing Tuesday in their lawsuit in Manhattan Federal Court. Well, this is a very sad development. It's horrific to even read and see those pictures on the article. Hopefully you can see that if you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble. But that is a horrific story, and it is seemingly a failure of leadership. Tariq Shepard probably was never qualified to be the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, let alone have any leadership skills. How this was able to fester underneath him is unbelievable and shows that Eric Adams can only appoint low-integrity people underneath him, apparently. Tariq Shepard has a lot to answer for here. And this unidentified captain who worked underneath Tariq Shepard. Now, obviously, more than likely, the defense is going to be, I didn't know, I didn't see anything, but this is going to cost the city millions of dollars. Taxpayers will be paying for this for a long time. And it's very disgusting that this even made it this far. Let alone, how is this officer in a unit like that with 2 or 3 years of experience, which is a pattern underneath Eric Adams? But speaking of Tariq Shepard, I'd like to put this post up by John McCarry. Here's a post by John McCarry, and it's Tariq Shepard. This is right off the NYPD's website that shows where his rank is, his rank in SHIELD history. And right there, 4/30/2020, he's a captain. 5/30/2023, he's a deputy inspector. 8/3/2023, he's a deputy chief. 8/7/2023, he's a deputy commissioner. 12/26/2024, he's an assistant chief. So, John points this out. Tariq Shepard's unusual NYPD executive discretionary promotion track. 5/30/2023, promoted to deputy inspector. 3 months later, he was promoted again, skipping over the rank of inspector. 8/3/2023, promoted to deputy chief. 3 days later, he was promoted again. 8/7/2023, promoted to Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, DCPI. This is a civilian position, which has the assimilated rank of 3-star chief. For a period of time in late 2024, he was seen wearing a NYPD uniform with 3 stars on his shoulder. The below NYPD records indicate he was never actually promoted to the rank of a 3-star uniform chief. 12/26/2024, he was demoted from his civilian position of DCPI to assistant chief, which is a uniformed 2-star chief position where he remains today. I remain baffled over this. I don't know how that occurred. These people are self-impressed. And also there are, again, rumors and allegations of transfers that occurred in the NYPD or promotions in the NYPD that occurred through a telephone message log. What's that? Well, suppose the chief of department, they call whatever command you are. So I guess Tariq Shepard's the 2-8 deputy inspector. And he says, I am transferring Deputy Inspector Tariq Shepard to Chief of Personnel as of 001 hours the next day. There should be a finest message that goes with this. The finest message is how the police department tracks personnel, how they go in the computer system. Well, a lot of that apparently wasn't occurring because many people that were transferred in and out of certain offices, chief of department and other, top ranking officials' offices, was never found to have happened. So was this another telephone message promotion? We're just going to promote this guy and never say why. Remember, just because you're assimilated rank of a 3-star chief, he's still a civilian. So he's not a chief. So you can't just wear the 3 stars on a uniform, let alone wear a uniform. You're a deputy commissioner of public information. So, this is just as bizarre as Kaz Dawdry running around with a gun and I guess he can arrest people and demand arrest as the assistant commissioner, then the deputy commissioner. He's a civilian, still acting as a cop. That is a legal, this is one hell of a legal question, and we still have no answers to any of this. Why was Tariq Shepard wearing 3 stars on a uniform out of nowhere? I don't know. Seems like he doesn't want to answer anyone's questions. So now let's go into the next topic, which is Anthony Miranda as a New York City sheriff. Judge rules raids of hemp stores by New York City sheriff state officials were improper. Decision prohibits New York City sheriff from raiding licensed hemp stores and orders state regulators to no longer enter those premises armed or with police. This is by Brendan J. Lyons of the Times-Union. Albany. State cannabis regulators overstepped their authority and the constitutional rights of licensed hemp stores when they used heavy-handed tactics to conduct warrantless raids of the shops, according to a court ruling issued Monday. The ruling by State Supreme Court Justice Thomas Marcel also found that the New York City Sheriff's Office lacked the legal authority to conduct regulatory raids of licensed hemp stores without a court-authorized search warrant and must cease doing so. The searing decision, which includes issuing a temporary restraining order against the State Office of Cannabis Management and the New York City Sheriff's Office, also directed state regulators to limit their inspections of those stores to no more than 2 unarmed inspectors, unless they identify a specific, credible, documented security concern associated with the particular business that they are inspecting. Joshua S. Bouchner, a New York City attorney for the petitioners in the case, said the ruling vindicates the rights of hemp licensees across the state, often small, family-owned businesses who are struggling against government overreach, subjecting them to armed raids, seizure of lawful product, and labeling them as criminals, all without constitutional protections. Hundreds of licensed hemp stores across New York have been raided over the past 2 years by state regulators and police agencies that have seized millions of dollars in cannabinoid products, goods that the retailers have previously been selling under federal and state laws that over the past 6 years have expanded the legalization of hemp. The seizures have been largely driven by new regulations governing hemp and cannabis that were quietly pushed through by the State Cannabis Control Board in late 2023, without public comment or the involvement of the state legislator. The regulations, which took effect early last year, sharpened the rules governing hemp products and effectively outlawed millions of dollars in products that many of the state's thousands of licensed hemp retailers had been selling since New York legalized marijuana in 2021. As part of that law change, the state also set rules for hemp products and gave the Cannabis Control Board the power to regulate them. But the enforcement of those regulations on hemp stores has included having regulators, tax agents, and police officers, usually armed and wearing bulletproof vests, entered the premises unannounced to search the personal belongings of employees, locked cabinets and safes, and areas of shops that were not part of the retail business. During the inspections, the regulators and police also would turn off any surveillance cameras and in some instances made employees empty their pockets. But Marcel noted the authority given to cannabis regulators to inspect those licensed stores does not supersede the U.S. Constitution's Fourth Amendment and that the sheriff's office has no authority to conduct warrantless regulatory inspections of those shops. Hemp store owners and their attorneys say the new regulations and inspections that have often involved product seizures have crippled their businesses. They contend that regulators and police are treating them like the operators of the thousands of illicit marijuana stores that have been blamed for taking away sales from licensed retail cannabis stores. Officials with the Office of Cannabis Management have previously disputed that their unannounced inspections are raids, although store owners and employees have described searches that mirror those conducted by drug task forces. The U.S. Supreme Court has told governments that seek to conduct warrantless searches that they must place statutory limits on the administrative agents who seek out contraband without a warrant. This has not been done, Marcel wrote. He also noted that the heavy law enforcement presence during the raids appeared to be intended to intimidate and to compel employees and customers into compliance. The manner of the search's execution is damning, Marcel wrote. In all instances, respondents were accompanied by heavily armed law enforcement officers who ordered customers out of the stores and prevented anyone from entering, permitting no commercial transactions to happen, although state regulators claim that the armed contingent was necessary for safety. No evidence of any specific instances was ever cited where hemp store employees or customers endangered or attempted to endanger the safety of regulators. In regards to the raids conducted by the New York City Sheriff's Office, Marcel said that while licensed hemp stores are subject to regulatory inspections by the Office of Cannabis Management, sheriff's deputies are not trained on the statutory, scientific, or administrative distinction between hemp and marijuana, and that the sheriff's office lacks the lawful authority to conduct a warrantless regulatory or administrative inspection of any business that possesses either a hemp or marijuana license. Attorneys for Breckenridge Cafe NYC, a licensed hemp retailer in New Brooklyn, and one of 5 hemp businesses that filed a lawsuit, noted that the store was first searched a year ago by cannabis inspectors and tax agents who were escorted into the businesses by state troopers. They ordered an employee to open a safe without a warrant and seized items they believed to contain cannabis. The store was searched again in September, a month after Breckenridge joined in the filing of the lawsuit that led to Marcel's decision on Monday. Although Breckenridge won an administrative hearing and had the alleged violations dismissed, the New York City Sheriff's Office and New York Police Department conducted a subsequent search of the business without a warrant and seized more products. Shockingly, the Sheriff's Office destroyed the product upon seizure, so no testing could ever be conducted, Marcel wrote. This willful ignorance as to the nature of the products exposes a search that is not administrative in nature. Marcel's decision included a finding that the 5 hemp stores are likely to prove their case that their Fourth Amendment rights had been violated, but it was not based solely on court filings. The judge held lengthy hearings last year that included testimony from store owners and employees as well as regulators and law enforcement officials, including representatives of the New York City Sheriff's Office. Warrantless administrative searches. The judge also juxtaposed the inspections of the licensed hemp stores, which have been handled like raids of unlicensed cannabis stores, against the administrative inspections conducted by other agencies such as the State Department of Agriculture and Markets, whose inspectors come armed with clipboards, forms, and pens, and not guns, bulletproof vests, and handcuffs. To put a fine point on it, the searches of petitioner stores and the seizures of their products, no matter justification, were unreasonable. The decision also found that state cannabis law, which legalized recreational marijuana use and possession 4 years ago, did not place any constitutional safeguards on the state Office of Cannabis Management, and that the office in its legal arguments had cited no regulation giving it the authority to conduct warrantless searches. Now, just because the government gives an administrative agency the power to conduct warrantless administrative searches does not mean the administrative searches are therefore always in accord with the Fourth Amendment, Marcel wrote. No matter the industry, the legislator may not give the executive branch the power to ignore the Constitution. Last year, interviews by the Times Union with more than a dozen hemp shop owners, their employees, or their attorneys, along with a review of photos and videos of the law enforcement inspections, revealed repeated instances in which workers had been threatened with arrest and in some instances taken into custody for what their attorneys have said were unsupported charges. In one of those cases, a female employee at a New York City hemp store was handcuffed to a bench at a police station overnight after being arrested for possession of mushrooms, but they did not contain, let's get this word right, psilocybin, a chemical that has hallucinogenic effects and is illegal in New York, according to her attorney. The hemp industry took off after 2018 when Congress passed the Agriculture Improvement Act, or Farm Bill, that legalized hemp federally. Under federal law, hemp is cannabis with not more than 0.3 of what's known as Delta-9. Let's get this word right. Tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, the psychoactive compound of marijuana plants that also found at very low levels in hemp plants. And although hemp stores sell dried flower, the hemp-infused edibles and beverages they sell are more dense than the dried plants, and many contain other forms of THC or similar intoxicating substances. The new regulations adopted a year ago, first on an emergency basis, stipulated that all hemp products distributed or offered for retail sale in New York are prohibited from containing any synthetic cannabinoids, artificially derived cannabinoids, or cannabinoids created through a process called isomerization, which is used to produce them. Until then, the hemp stores had been operating under the belief that as long as the products did not contain more than 0.3% Delta-9 THC, they were legal. Hemp industry stakeholders contend the rule changes were designed to prevent their businesses from selling products that may be legal under federal law, but were competing with New York's new retail marijuana stores. Essentially, consumers have been able to buy products in hemp stores that get them high. Officials with the Office of Cannabis Management have said their office does not comment on pending legal litigation. What I believe the Eric Adams administration will be remembered for is not only all the corruption, but all the money that New York City will have to dish out in current litigation, pending litigation, and future litigation. This entire cannabis store crackdown is so unconstitutional, warrantless searches, and guess what? Now it is being rumored and alleged that it was the now current Chief of Department, John Schell, and the Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Kaz Daughtry, that were the brainchilds of this smoke shop task force that was put together and was aiding the New York City Sheriff, Anthony Miranda, and his deputies. He's forcing to do all these crazy things with them. They were the ones that were really running the show, John Schell and Kaz Daughtry. So, again, Eric Adams' fingerprints are all over this one. The warrantless searches, the illegal detainments. They detained people only to let them out, knowing that the whole thing is warrantless. You can't just show up and take people's property, their money, and already Anthony Miranda was already being looked at for this stuff. And they still continue. They barreled through this whole thing. But now, there were questions. You saw Kaz Daughtry put out a video when he was doing one of these raids. And now you kind of know why. Because now the latest breaking news is that allegedly it was Kaz Daughtry and John Schell who came up with the smoke shop task force or whatever they call this. And were technically aiding Miranda in any and all of these cannabis store raids. And this is going to end up costing the city millions of dollars. Millions. Because there's going to be so many victims here of this, that, unlawful imprisonment, you're seizing people's properties. You ruin people's reputation, their stores. And for what? So Eric Adams could go up there at the State of the City address and say, We've cracked down on all these cannabis stores. Anthony Miranda, my sheriff, doing a great job. So what he's doing is he's going after the legal way of selling drugs, and the actual drug dealers are left alone. In fact, he's partying with some of them. Okay? So that is the state of affairs in New York City. And now we're going to segue into the next thing, and that discipline in New York State Police Department is all arbitrary. It was really arbitrary when Eddie Caban, the party police commissioner, Eddie Caban, was the active police commissioner. And we're going to go back to an article that was written just a few weeks prior in regards to a decision that Eddie Caban made that once again proves that the disciplinary system is a ruse. It's a fraud. It's just, who do you know and how do you know them? Former NYPD Commissioner Caban overruled decision to terminate captain in sex harass case. This is in the New York Daily News. It's by Graham Raymond.
Former NYPD Commissioner Caban overruled decision to terminate captain in sex harass case. Days before his phone was seized in the midst of a federal investigation, now former police commissioner Edward Caban allowed an NYPD captain found to have repeatedly sexually harassed a subordinate over 18 months to keep his job. Caban overruled a trial commissioner's recommendation to fire Captain Antonio Pagan and instead ruled on August 30th that Pagan should lose 60 vacation days for the alleged harassment, a copy of the decision states. During a period spanning 2020 and 2021, Pagan was assigned to the NYPD's 911 call center in the Bronx where he oversaw his accuser Huda Ahmad, a civilian communications technician in the office. In a case that included 750 pages of text messages between the two and recordings secretly made by Ahmad, the 3-day administrative trial in June turned on the question of whether Pagan used his position to coerce Ahmad or if she manipulated Pagan to her advantage, as the defense maintained. On July 29, trial commissioner Jeff Adler found Pagan guilty, ruling the captain had repeatedly rubbed Ahmad's hands, asked her for dates and asked her to sit on his lap in exchange for better hours, the decision states. Pagan also asked her to send photos of herself in exchange for days off, including photos in a hijab and in the shower. Ahmad sent the photos. These were not isolated incidents. Rather, they were part of an extensive course of conduct that created a hostile work environment, Adler wrote in his decision. But in deciding to allow Pagan to keep his job, Caban wrote, "I have determined that while a severe penalty is warranted for the misconduct, separation from the department is not. It is undisputed that Captain Pagan engaged in inappropriate behavior with a subordinate." On September 4, Caban's home was raided as part of a federal probe into whether his brother James used the family connection to bolster his security business. Caban resigned on September 12. Ahmad filed a lawsuit November 18 in state court after her suit was voluntarily withdrawn in federal court, records show. No responses have been filed in that action. Her lawyer John Scola said Caban's decision sends a troubling message to the NYPD workforce. It signals that the internal disciplinary process and the protection of women employees are subordinate to the good old boys network that dominates the department, he said. But Louis LaPietra, Pagan's lawyer, alleged Ahmad concocted the harassment allegations to get better assignments and possibly win a lucrative city settlement via her lawsuit. She flattered him, toyed with him, got him nice and comfortable to the point that he would say something stupid and give her something that she can secretly videotape and then play the good old NYPD lotto game by filing a lawsuit, which is exactly what she did, LaPietra said during the trial, the transcript shows. NYPD communication tech Monique Brown, now retired, testified she saw Ahmad, then using her married name of Bowman, blow a kiss to Pagan in the office, but Ahmad never complained to her about Pagan. "I always saw her in his office. I would see her there just all time, almost way too much," she said. "I warned him, I felt like she might be trying to take advantage of him." Pagan was transferred from the 911 call center to Brooklyn courts on October 11, NYPD records show. He submitted papers to retire in October and is currently on terminal leave. A department spokesperson said. The Pagan decision was one of several Caban made in the final 2 months of his tenure to downgrade or overturn disciplinary recommendations. The news previously highlighted the case of Detective Dellar Rothor, who was found guilty of violating department rules after 2 domestic violence arrests. The trial commissioner in that case recommended termination, but on June 18, Caban instead slapped Rothor with the loss of 35 vacation days. The decision was not publicly disclosed until August. Caban also gave a pass a week before he resigned to Sergeant Bilal Atesh, who body-slammed a protester back in 2020 during a George Floyd protest, the city website first reported. Atesh, under a plea deal with the Civilian Complaint Review Board, accepted a penalty of 10 lost vacation days. But Caban in his final decision rejected the penalty and waived any discipline of Atesh at all, the city reported. While trial commissioners and the CCRB can make recommendations on discipline, police commissioners have the final say and can increase or reduce discipline at their sole discretion.
Yeah, this is rather a disturbing trend. And it seems that in the New York City Police Department, and probably many police departments or, city-held offices, this sexual harassment stuff, whether you may believe it or you don't, it occurs a lot more than people want to talk about. And it usually stems from people that are in power, harassing or abusing their subordinates. So here, if this captain, who was supposed to be terminated by the New York City Police Department, in fact, that's what the trial commissioners recommended there, wasn't terminated, and Ed Caban said, no, I'm not going to terminate, even though the behavior is egregious. So you're saying that what he did is egregious. Technically, that is already against city rules, department rules. It goes against the city charter. But he didn't terminate him. He kept him on, and now he's on the way out the door waiting to get his pension, right? He's going to be, no problems here. And on top of it, he's going to get his good guy letter and be able to get any job he wants where there's a victim out there that they victimized, and nobody cares because you're right. The Good Old Boys Club is more maybe like the Concha Frito crew. And if you're not part of that crew, you're not going to get away with anything. Only that crew gets away with whatever behavior it is that is deemed egregious. This is disgraceful. I believe they need to revisit all this discipline stuff. Look, should the police commissioner be making the final determination? Why would you even have a trial room then? Why do you even have all this stuff? This needs to be reconstituted. The way discipline is handed out, the way discipline is dealt with. It's a sham. The whole thing. The whole thing is a sham. Because if you are part of the power system or know the power system, more than likely you're going to get away with whatever it is that they're alleging or have evidence of your wrongdoing. And we're seeing that whether it's in your city police department. On a recent episode, you heard Marlon Marachi, the IA podcast guy. He said that. He's talking about LAPD and how, again, they come up with their own conclusions before they even present evidence. So it's a sham. That needs to stop. So I believe the whole procedure needs to be abolished, and how they go about discipline, and have to construct a whole new system, because this system clearly only works for the ruling class. And one final topic I want to touch up on, and that's finances of the New York City Police Department and how taxpayer money is just flying around out there and being wasted. So here's a post by Sam Antar on X. The big chart here says NYPD overtime money flow, how $821 million gets redistributed. And this is for the year 2023. And here's a chart. It says NYPD overtime reports borough commands, other bureaus citywide, and collective bargaining. So borough commands, it says 259.9 million, other bureaus citywide 510.2 million, collective bargaining 50.9 million. And then it funnels down and it goes into the city council budget documents. So borough commands 6.5 million is going to borough commands, and it says borough commands 6.5 million, but then it also 253.4 million goes to the chief of department. Then the other bureau citywide, they're also sending money there. So is the collective bargaining. So that totals the chief of department with 503.5 million. And then other 19 bureaus and subdivisions, 311 million, and they're getting money from the other bureaus citywide and the collective bargaining. So now let me read you the post. Latest investigation. Now, NYPD's Byzantine accounting system deliberately obscures overtime spending across multiple tracking systems, making financial oversight virtually impossible. And the full article, of course, is at whitecollarfraud.com. The shell game explained. NYPD splits overtime reporting between two systems. NYC Council tracks actual expenses across 28 bureaus and subdivisions. NYPD reports through 8 borough patrols plus other categories. Follow the disappearing money. NYPD claims $259.9 million in borough command uniform officer overtime. City council budget shows only $6.46 million actually expensed. Missing $253.4 million. Dumped into chief of department's $503.5 million pool. Another $510.2 million hidden in vague other bureaus citywide. Plus $50.9 million in collective bargaining costs floating unallocated. The result? $814.5 million scattered across 20 different bureaus and subdivisions. A deliberate maze where meaningful oversight becomes impossible. Systemic oversight failure. Speaker Adrian Adams and Finance Chair Justin Brannan ignored warning signs in their own detailed reports. City Comptroller Brad Lander's 700 auditors missed these red flags entirely. Mayor Eric Adams only ordered new controls after abuse allegations went public. Yeah, Sam Antar is the man when it comes to financing. Please follow him on X and read his stuff at whitecollarfraud.com. Once again, the monetary part of this entire equation, he's exposing it. These people are not only just corrupt, they not only do criminal activities, but they are stealing your money all over. They're just doing whatever they want with it. They're fleecing the taxpayers. And some of these taxpayers are what? Applauding? Back the blue? Go, Eric, go. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of low information voters out there. You need to freshen up on the stats, on what's really going on. You got to keep up with this because in the end, a lot of New York City taxpayers are going to be left footing the bill for Anthony Miranda's corruption, for John Shell and Kaz Daughtry's misdeeds, for Eddie Caban's misdeeds, for Eric Adams' misdeeds. It's just nonstop, and it's going to leave a lasting effect. So, New York City, get your act together, get your hands around this, and start to change how New York City is run, because as New York City goes, so does the rest of the country. I guarantee you that in other police departments and other city agencies across the United States, there's a little bit of this going on there. And we on the Sal Greco Show are just shining a light and blowing a whistle because this kind of behavior and this egregious behavior actually is going on in a city near you. Please pay attention. Start paying attention. Open your eyes. Read articles. Search things out because you need to be informed. Otherwise, there won't be anything left for your children, your great-grandchildren, and any future because it'll be all tied up and being spent in a complete wasteland, just like New York City will be doing for the next couple of years. All thanks to New York City's first indicted mayor, Eric Adams, and his cronies. This has been Sal Greco. Tune in for the next episode of the Sal Greco Show. And for everyone out there, I'll see you on the next one.